One thing I share with the guys every time we are at a camp is that we take more than we give. You know, we fill our cups to come and fill their cups. And in that overflow, God just continues to bless us and equip us with what we need. So we come here with unanswered questions, not knowing sometimes we will get the next meal, how things are going at home. Maybe we've got some issues that we've put behind and said, listen, yeah, I know that I've got issues at home in my relationship. I know that finances are tough. I know that sometimes I don't have all the answers in the workplace and I'm called to lead. But when we come out of here, we leave with those questions answered. Just through being a positive influence in someone else's life, we get what we need. And sometimes we can't get these answers in the city. We have to switch off, we have to shut off, and find ourselves in an environment like this where we are open to receive positive criticism from somewhere, right? We hear all of these narratives that we're trying to break and abolish, right? Like toxic masculinity is one that really drives me up the wall. But I want to reframe that to positive masculinity, right? Be in a position where you can speak openly and freely to another man without judgment. Speak openly and freely to another man without condemnation. Openly and freely to another man, knowing that that sentiment of I am my brother's keeper will be held high in regard, because the men we try to use in the program with SMRS and the character company are men that we call fat, but not zdoodlas, not guys that eat too much pizzas and burgers, but guys that carry a wonderful acronym of faithful, available and teachable. And teachable being the most important part of that acronym. We need to remain teachable, because then we remove pride from ourselves, saying that we are never too old to learn. We want to learn, and in that process of learning we can give more to these young boys that we disciple and lead.
I'd like to just to add on what you've just said. When it comes to pride, you know, we often see people in pompous and all of that and try being prideful, and yes, some of them do get to where they want to, but they end up coming down crumbling because it's a one-man show. It's not a show, it's not something that's done in a group setup where everyone wants to achieve the same goal. One wants to show off what is it that they're bringing and go ahead and leave everyone behind. But once you do that, you then are met with some cold air and all of that, and you feel it and you come down crumbling. And the group that has been working hard to succeed as a group then makes it, because when one falls down, the other one is able to pick them up and run with them. And when the other one falls down, it's a team effort, it's teamwork. And I think humanity and humility works a great deal.
Awesome. I've got a question for each one of you. So, Uncle Michael, your first 24 hours of spending time at camp with us, what's been, in the past 24 hours, what's been the best experience for you so far?
I think definitely last night, going out with the boys into the night, just looking, checking out the stars. Well, I mean, I was in school a very long time ago, so I had forgotten what most of the stars are. So that was pretty cool. That was very interesting. But just the chats around the fire, we haven't done that for a while, and just being able to speak openly and just you just feel a lot of weight coming off within yourself without really even making a real effort. I think that for me, of any place that I could have been, I could think of where I could have been for the long weekend. I really believe from the depths of my heart that is exactly where God wanted me to be. You know, and I feel it really had an impact on me. And yeah, so just to add on to that, I mean, in terms of what this does, I mean, we've been Christians for a long time, and there's certain issues that the church talks about, but they never really do anything about. Issues like GBV and stuff like that, where church is preaching to the converted, basically, to a certain extent, but we're hardly reaching out. But I really think places like this, where you catch these young souls before they've been corrupted by the world, and you instill positive values, that's where you're able to turn the tide of men who are toxic, who abuse women, who rape women, because at some point the tide has to turn. and it's not up to government, it's not up to thing, it's up to men, because God has left the responsibility with men to change the situations that they're not happy with. So these sort of things that, you know, even though you're talking, these are some of the things that really, like last night, you really think about it, that God has a bigger plan for putting you in a place. Maybe it won't fulfill itself here, but God, with every way He's taking you, He's putting something in you for the future, and it's all bigger than all of us, basically.
Yeah, that's a wonderful comment that you've made there. It reminds me of good old faithful Joshua, right? Joshua was a man after God's heart. He did some remarkable things, and I could think of how amazing the world would be if we had a Joshua in every community, every kasi, every village. Imagine that, right? Having one guy that spearheads a change. That would be phenomenal. And the reality is, we do. There's a lot of guys that we look up to in the community that we know are really good. But what happens is, society sells us this view of what a man is. And if a guy can't live up to this, then he's nothing. You know, so some guys would rather keep quiet than run the risk of being embarrassed because they cannot provide, or the responsibility gets taken away from them, right? We see that far too often in communities. So just think about that. On the other end of this, if there are any guys that are looking at this, thinking about a way to step up and be that man in your community, instead of doing the work on your own, you could partner with an organization like SMRS or the Character Company to help change this wonderful nation that we have of South Africa, one boy at a time. There's the old saying that we hear, right? If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And that's so important when it comes to mentorship. Uncle Thabiso, for yourself, what is one thing that you have learned in the last 24 hours?
Thank you for the opportunity, and I'm tempted to say a lot of things, but before I get to that, I'd like to really touch on what Uncle Mike has said, which is very important. You know, he talks about making sure that we touch the boy's life at a very early age.
Yes.
And you know, you're absolutely correct, my brother, because if you want to change, to have positive behavioral change, you touch them while they're still young, because it's easy to change behavior while they're still young. Because once they get a bit older, you can be able to change the behavior, but it's a bit difficult. So really, I'm touched by what he's just shared with us, and then that's what we also believe in. But for me, I really enjoy hiking, and hiking today was phenomenal, simply because the boys were relaxed than yesterday. They could see their way where they were hiking to, and on our way back, that's where we were told that there used to be a bridge here and it's no more. Now we have to make a plan. And we had two mentors who stepped up, and one jumped and was on the other side of the water, and one on this side, to help the boys to get onto the other side. And I was talking to one of the boys to say, do you see what we've been distilling in you since the morning? We started by training, but all that was done in a team setup, not in an individual setup, where we say we work as a team. But leave the morning session, come to this session where we are now, and see how the teamwork is. Now we've got an uncle on the other side, another uncle on the other side. As you jump, they're holding you, and one person is standing on the other side to give you a hand. So this is teamwork. And shortly after that, the boy comes to me and says, Uncle Thabiso, can I ask you a question? I say, yes, you're more than welcome. He says to me, how have you been able to live up after COVID? I mean, this is a strange question coming from the boy you just met yesterday, but you spent about 4 to 5 hours with today. And I start explaining to him, and then he says to me, I ask him, why are you asking the specific question about COVID? He says to me, my mom hasn't been able to find work post-COVID.
Wow.
And now I'm shocked. But again, it's the reality of what is happening. And I say, what is it that you want to do when you finish school? He says to me, I don't know. So I was like, give me your top 3 that you would think of. He says, a judge, a doctor, and I don't remember what was the other one. So he asked me, can you relate to me? What is it that I have to do? So I tell him what he needs to study, what grades he needs to achieve, and what are the steps after that once he's passed. And he says, which one will give me more money so that my family doesn't struggle? Now you are able to see that the boy has been with the character company. Now they've learned values. One of the values is to take care of their family. Now he wants to know, how am I going to be able to make money to be able to take care of my mother who's unemployed? My mother was employed post-COVID, pre-COVID, and post-COVID she's no longer employed. How do I step up and be the father, be the head of the family? That has stuck with me, and it says to me, what you've been doing is yielding results. If you've got a 13-year-old who's already asking such questions, imagine if they continue with the program until they finish school, until they get into varsity. Imagine the positive change that they will bring to other boys, whether it's at home, whether it's at school, whether it's at church. So that has really stuck with me, and I feel very honored to have been part of that conversation, not just the camp, but part of that conversation. Thank you.
And that's wonderful, and that's a great reason on why we know values are important. Because if you look at the opposite end of that, you've got the boy that then identifies with the fact that I'm a nobody, my father left me, I'm fatherless. And these are three things that is constantly echoed to him when he goes to school, and the teacher says, you've got bad issues, I'm sure you like your dad. Or your mother says, you behave just like your father. And the boy goes to soccer and he's got no one that comes to watch him. And when he needs to get disciplined, and his mother doesn't know how to teach him. And those three sentiments that the boy is echoed in a negative connotation are things that stay with him. And mentorship and values are what teach him that, like, as a book will have a name and multiple chapters, right? But right now the boys are writing a book with the title of the book being Identity, right? And the identity is, I don't have a father, or I am fatherless. And with values, we can reframe that and shape them and say that part of why you are fatherless is part of the story. But it could be, I'm special, I'm loved, I'm a child of God. I might not have one father, but I've got multiple guys that step in the gap for me. So that he doesn't use the fact that I'm fatherless as an excuse. Because this thing of generational curses that we have as guys, like, is also a real thing, right? We hold on to these things. And you mentioned you also grew up, brother, without a father. Also did. And yourself, Tabiso?
Fortunately, I had
yeah. See,
and
so
I still have
that's fantastic.
my father, which is very I really appreciate it. For the past 20 to 23 years, so he's 83. He was diagnosed with prostate cancer, and we are lucky that we've had him for 23 years with prostate cancer. Days are not the same. Today is okay, he's fantastic, he's smiling with everyone. Later on tonight, he's just worse, and 2 days later he's better. So we're lucky to have him, and we would like to impart what we've grown up with to the boys.
Yeah, that's wonderful, man. That's just another example. So also culturally, we think that the biggest statistics are African and colored people growing up without fathers, but the fact remains is that you can be fatherless in Soweto or Sandton. Guys abdicate their responsibility too easily, and it doesn't always go around the demographic, right? It's always the four corners of an impoverished community, but it's not always the case. There are people walking out of the responsibility all over the world. It depends on their upbringing, how they were taught, what values they were given, and it's a privilege to step into mentorship because we get to shape a young boy and teach him what you mentioned. That's a wonderful testimony of your first 24 hours with us, man. That's beautiful.
Yep.